Everyone cried when Tokyo died. The music, the slow motion, the grenades, the sacrifice. The entire internet called it the most heartbreaking death in the show. But what if I told you the character you were crying for was the single most destructive force inside every heist she touched? Not Gandia, not Arturo, not even Berlin, and by the end of this video you will not see that death scene the same way ever again. Money Heist is built on a simple psychological trick. It lets Tokyo narrate her own story. From the very first episode, her voice is the one guiding you. Her perspective is the lens you see everything through. Her emotions are the ones the camera validates. Her choices are the ones the music justifies. And that is the most dangerous narrative device a show can use. Because when someone controls their own story, they control how you judge them. So today, we remove Tokyo from the narrator's chair. We put her in the witness chair instead, and we look at what she actually did, not what she told you she did. The picture that emerges is not a tragic heroine, it is something far more uncomfortable. Before she was Tokyo, before the red jumpsuit and the dolly mask, she was Silene Oliveira, a young woman living on the run after a robbery went wrong and her boyfriend was shot dead by police in front of her eyes. And here is where the psychology begins. That moment, watching the person she loved die violently, did not break Silene. It did not send her into grief or recovery or rebuilding. It sent her deeper in. She did not stop robbing. She did not try to build a different life. She ran. She kept running. She lived in a permanent state of adrenaline because adrenaline was the only thing that drowned out the pain. This is called trauma-driven recklessness, and it is the foundation of every single destructive decision Tokyo makes across 5 seasons. She was not brave, she was not free-spirited. She was a deeply traumatized young woman who had never once stopped to process what happened to her and who unconsciously recreated dangerous situations because danger was the only emotional state she understood. The professor recruited her at her lowest point, running alone, wanted by the police. And she said yes to the heist not because she believed in the resistance, but because it was the next dangerous thing available to her. That context matters because everything Tokyo does inside the Mint flows directly from the psychology. She was not a loose cannon. She was a trauma response in a red jumpsuit. Now, let us look at what Tokyo actually did, not what she felt, what she did inside the Royal Mint. Within the first few days, Tokyo broke one of the professor's most important rules. She started a romantic relationship with Rio inside the heist against direct instructions. The professor had been clear: no emotional attachments, no relationships, no distractions. The entire plan depended on the crew staying focused. Tokyo decided her feelings were more important than the plan. And that decision had consequences that rippled across 3 entire seasons. But that was just the beginning of her pattern inside the Mint. When Berlin made decisions she disagreed with, and Berlin made many decisions worth disagreeing with, Tokyo's response was never strategic. It was never measured. It was always emotional, always immediate, and almost always made things dramatically worse. She defied Berlin's authority openly and repeatedly, not because she had a better plan, but because she could not control her own reactions. She escalated every conflict she entered. She made Berlin's job of controlling the heist harder at every turn, which sounds like a good thing until you realize that an unstable leadership situation inside a building full of hostages and police outside is dangerous for everyone, including the hostages. Berlin expelled Tokyo from the Mint, kicked her out directly into police hands. And yes, Berlin doing that was wrong. Berlin was punishing her for insubordination and using her as an example. That was cruel and calculated. But ask yourself why Tokyo was in that position at all. She had repeatedly, deliberately, and openly undermined the chain of command inside an active heist. She had made herself a liability. She had forced Berlin's hand by refusing every single time to operate within any structure that was not entirely her own. Tokyo did not get expelled because Berlin was a villain. Tokyo got expelled because she was ungovernable, and in a heist, ungovernable gets people killed. Now we get to the part of Tokyo's story that the show asks you to feel the most sympathy about, and the part that actually deserves the most scrutiny: Rio. After the Royal Mint heist ended and the crew scattered, Tokyo and Rio were hiding together in an island paradise. Safe, free, more money than they could spend. The heat had died down. They had made it. And Tokyo got bored. She left, not because Rio did anything wrong, not because the relationship was unhealthy, not because she was in danger, She left because the stillness was unbearable to her, because peace did not feel like peace to Silene Oliveira, it felt like suffocation. Remember the psychology we established at the beginning? She was not built for calm. She was built for crisis. So she walked away from the one person who loved her completely, while he was still on that island, and went looking for something that felt more alive. Rio got captured by the CIA shortly after, and the show frames this as Tokyo's tragic guilt. As the wound that drives her through seasons 3 and 4, she blamed herself. She suffered. She fought to get him back. But strip away the emotion and look at the sequence of events clearly. Tokyo left Rio alone in a vulnerable situation because she was emotionally incapable of sustaining peace. Rio got captured. Tokyo's guilt then pulled the entire crew back out of hiding, back into another heist, to rescue him. Every single person who died in the Bank of Spain heist, Nairobi, Helsinki, almost the professor, all of it traces back to one chain of events that began with Tokyo being unable to sit still on an island with a man who loved her. That is not a tragic heroine. That is a woman whose unresolved trauma had a body count. Here's where we go deeper than the plot. Here's where we talk about what was actually happening inside Silene's mind across 5 seasons. Tokyo displayed a textbook pattern of what psychologists call self-sabotage born from survivor's guilt. She watched her first love die. She survived. And somewhere deep in her subconscious, she decided, without ever saying it out loud, that she did not deserve the safe version of life. That peace was a trap that if she stayed still long enough, the grief would catch up with her. So she kept moving. She kept burning things down before they could become something she might lose. Rio was safe and loving, so she left before she could lose him the way she lost her first boyfriend. The heist was structured and disciplined, so she rebelled against every structure before it could fail her. This is not strength, this is not being a free spirit, this is a person running from themselves at full speed and destroying everything in their path in the process. And the show knew this. The writers knew exactly what they were building. They gave Tokyo the narrator's voice precisely because unreliable narrators are the most compelling ones. She told you she was fighting for love and freedom. The camera showed you something more honest, a woman who could not stop pulling the pin on grenades, emotional and literal, and then weeping at the explosion. The tragedy of Tokyo is not that she died. The tragedy is that she never once stopped long enough to understand why she lived the way she did. Tokyo's death is the most cinematically beautiful moment in Money Heist. The music, the slow motion, the grenades pulled one by one, Rio screaming, the professor breaking down, and it was genuinely sacrificial. She gave her life so her crew could survive. That is real. That happened. And in that single moment, Silene Oliveira did the one thing she had never managed to do across 5 seasons of television. She stopped running. She stood completely still. She made a decision with full clarity. She chose someone else's survival over her own. No impulse, no emotion overriding logic, just a clean, clear final choice. And that is exactly what makes it so heartbreaking. Not because Tokyo was a hero all along, but because in her very last moment she finally became the person she could have been if she had ever learned to stop. 5 seasons of destruction. 5 seasons of burning down everything she touched. And the one moment she finally got it right was the moment she did not survive to carry it forward. That is the real tragedy of Silene Oliveira, not the grenades. Not the slow motion, not the music. The tragedy is what she could have been and never was until it was too late. Tokyo was not the villain of Money Heist in the traditional sense. She never had a plan to hurt anyone. She never ordered executions. She never manipulated people for power, but unresolved trauma with no self-awareness and no accountability is its own kind of destruction. And Tokyo left a trail of it across every season she appeared in. The show gave her the most beautiful death. The audience gave her the most tears. But the people inside that story, Rio, Nairobi, the professor, the entire crew, they deserved a version of Tokyo who had done the work on herself before she dragged them all back into danger. If this changed how you see her, or if you think she deserved every tear, drop it in the comments below. And if you want the next breakdown, we are going inside the professor's mind next, and I promise you, the most dangerous person in Money Heist was never holding a gun. See you there.